Hello, we are Cabeza Patata and we are super happy to be online here with you.
Today we'll talk about how to make a studio. So we're going to go through 10 points about how we made our studio, Cabeza Patata.
So our first point is that there are lots of different paths to get there. We came into the industry in completely different ways, me and Katie, and we're going to talk about how we got there. Abel, that's me, and I got into the industry in a path that might sound more natural. I studied media in university, and after that I moved to London and I started working in the industry. But before talking about like how it happened, I'm gonna do a flashback and we're gonna see Abel when I was 16 years old. And I really like this photo because I remember this time. By this time I was a teenager in my room doing stop motion films. I didn't even know there was an industry behind. I liked animation films, but that was something that other people were making, not something like I could make myself. And I do a flash forward 10 years later, and I was working on this film. Blade Runner 2049. I worked as part of a team in Territory Studios in London, designing UI for this film. It was super fun to work on this, and it was like a bit of a childhood dream. But to be fair, the real childhood dream I had was about making those stop motion animation films, not this big Blade Runner stuff. As well as working on Blade Runner 49, I worked on other projects that maybe were a bit more what I liked. I like to say that they were more colorful, even if this project you can see right now is in black and white. But there were projects like this music video I animated for the French band Abel that had all that character and a bit more hand-drawn feeling that I was connecting much more with. As well as working on this, I worked for the CNN on their Color Scope series. The video I made was the color red. These are little animated pieces that talk about theory of color from a cultural perspective. And it was super fun, and it was probably the last project I directed before jumping into Cabeza Patata.
And I'm Katie. And as you can see, I came into the industry doing something completely different, which is embroidery. I also have a little flashback of me at my table of work, shall we say, when I'm probably about 7 or 8 years old. And as you can see, I always really liked making things and drawing things, and I think that table's full of glitter actually. But I'd never really thought that it would become my career. I always thought that it would carry on as a hobby. But funnily enough, if you jump forward a couple decades, here I am at my new table of work. I actually created my embroidery brand, La Katie, which I made personalised embroideries for clients. I did some collaborations with studios as well. It was really doing embroidery where I discovered my style, as it were, and I discovered really what I liked in design. And I started making characters first of all. Some characters from popular culture, as you can see, and also starting to experiment a little bit with my own characters. And you can see some very early Cabeza Patatas popping up in the embroidery there.
So the way Cabeza Patata started, by that time I bought a new computer. I was very interested. People were using GPU render programs that I had no idea about. People were as well doing VR by that time, using Unity or Unreal or other softwares, and I wanted to get more power on my PC to be able to do those things. So I bought it and I started doing tests. You can see the first tests I was making were much more related to VR. You can see some stuff here with like the Beatles. So the experience I've made was an animated music video in which you put the headset on and you are inside the I Am the Walrus by the Beatles. The song says things like shooting pigs with a gun or sitting on a cornflake, really absurd things. It's not a video game in the typical sense, like you cannot win or lose, but you are experiencing all of this as you go. So by the time I was working on this project, I was talking to Katie about the idea of turning some of the beautiful drawings he was making at the time and using the computer and the skills that we were learning to make something in 3D, and we tried.
So we really liked these first attempts, so we thought, let's just make more and more. So we decided to keep on translating from 2D into 3D, looking at how we might translate something like a flat circle in 2D into a ball of light in 3D. And we also wanted to have a look at how we might use our characters in embroidery, of course, also in textile design, and in larger scale. So we made some murals here on walls and were experimenting a bit with shape and space and colour. And at this point, people really started to ask, what are you guys doing? Are you working together? Is this an idea for a career project? And we thought, okay, well, it's as easy as calling yourself a studio.
There's nothing that you need specifically to be a studio. It's not that you need a fancy coffee machine or someone opening the door, but for sure you need a website. So we got into action, and one weekend we made that image that you see there that has been following us since the creation of the studio, and we made the website. But we think that it's not only about having a website or calling yourself a studio, but there is one extra step, and this is our third point, that is that what you make matters. And with that, we mean that even if we think that making characters, we are not changing the world, we have an influence on how people perceive things, and we have a perfect example of that.
We have a nice example of this from an early project that we made, which was looking at characters doing sports. So we were looking for some references early on, and we decided to Google a baseball outfit. And you can see here is the first page of Google results and Google Images. And here in red are all of the men, and here we have all of the women. And we noticed this huge contrast just on Google Images, that all of the men are looking strong, ready to play sport in proper outfits, and all of the women are hypersexualized and none of them are anywhere near playing sport. So we thought that when these are the type of images that we're seeing in our everyday society, when you make illustrations like this, it almost feels quite revolutionary, and you're making something that we really don't see in our day-to-day. Now with this project, we wanted to be able to take it a little bit further and to try and create more dynamism in the images and just explore a bit further what we could do. So we found this program called Marvelous Designer, in which you make your own clothes. You literally create a pattern as if it were in real life, and then you sew it together with a digital sewing machine. And here's some of the results. And this is our first use of Marvelous Designer actually, and we loved it. We thought not only did the cloth bring more dynamism to the images, but also they started to influence a bit the shape of the characters and how they hold themselves. We realized that their bodies started to take on more curves, and they started to look a bit more comfortable in themselves. And so we were really excited about this. And we decided, well, it was great to do this sports project, and so let's do another one.
We have an advice for our fourth point related to when we were working on this, and is that we started thinking everything is a project. And this is something that we've been applying since the beginning, and it means that if you have a few images that are all around, that you've been testing a few things, if you put them together in a project, things start looking much more cohesive, it helps you organize in your mind, and in general, it's a good practice. Of course, we were experimenting with clothes, and we thought, why don't we make a fashion illustration series? So we played with this idea of like making realistic sets in which our characters would be there. So it looked like, even if everything is in 3D, it looks like we got our characters into this fashion shoot.
We took references from our own clothing. You can see here me making my own jacket on the screen, which then appears in a character, kind of meta, and also from real photography. And again, as we were saying before, many of our references from photography were of men, because the positions that we wanted to convey were confident and comfortable. And we found that typically in fashion photography, this is afforded to men and not to women. So we thought that simply by swapping the gender and putting women in these strong, powerful positions, we actually had started to create something that looked quite different. And from all of this personal work came our first client project, which was for a charity called VOW. It's a global charity which aims to end child marriage, and the project was a video, a collaborative piece with 6 other artists, and each of us was going to do a short 3-second segment.
And we were not super experienced by then with character animation, but we knew how to do 2D. So the way we did it is that we had the 2D animation that we made, and then the 3D that we copied frame by frame, and then we added the clothes animation on top. And it was like, by that time as well, we're learning so much about clothing that we decided to put it everywhere. So you can see the room having all these realistic details that we're adding something so organic and so like detached from the typical idea we have of 3D.
So here we have the whole video piece.
In the time it takes a girl to think up a new dance move, realize pigeons don't make good pets, customize her sneakers, pack a backpack, confirm there are no monsters under her bed, talk her brother out of his dessert, another girl will be married. Vow to end child marriage.
Now when we finished the piece and we saw our character next to these other 5 artists that we had already known and admired for a while, and we saw how our character also seemed to have a personality, and we found it very exciting actually to see how she fit in within a world of characters. As it was a global project and it was a collaborative project with other artists, it did start to get a lot of attention and we started to get contacted a lot. So we decided that it's important to reply to emails. Sometimes when an opportunity arises, you might feel a bit nervous about it, or you might be unsure as to how to reply, but we thought, well, it's always good to go for it and just see what you see. So we have a fun example here of something that happened really early on, just a couple months into Cabeza Patata. We got this email that says invitation to Peru, and it has a little aeroplane emoji. And normally you might think this is straight to spam, an emoji in an email subject, I'm not sure about that. But we thought, well, let's reply, let's see what it is. And sure enough, a couple months later, here we are in Peru. So we went there to film 2 online courses about character design. And as well as filming these courses and meeting the company there, we also met some other local craft collectives, such as Here I Am with the Lana Urbana, which is a craft collective in Lima in Peru.
The course has been super successful, more than 2,000 students have been part of it, and it was a way from the very beginning to be very open about our process. We think the value what we make is about the way we make it, our intention behind, and not on like the buttons that we know that to push, or even like on knowing the names of the pieces of software. We are not secretive about that. We want people to do their own thing and putting all their own experiences and everything they have inside and apply it to their own characters. So as well as doing this online course, we thought, why not we take it one step further and do a completely free video in which we show how we work. So we collaborated with Motionographer, making this step-by-step series. In this case, we are not explaining things on top with a voiceover. We're just filming our screen from the entire process, from the beginning when we started sketching a piece to the final result, when we render it out and put it out. So people can see everything we do. This is now a speed up, but you can see it in real time. And it was super successful, people really loved it, and also the result we got almost very randomly, because it was like something that we were doing only for the step-by-step video, but we really liked the colors, the intention of this character, the position, everything around it, we were loving it. So we applied our points from before, everything as a project, and we turned it into a series.
And here are some of the other illustrations we made in this personal project. Again, trying to pare back the colour palette a bit, taking what we've learnt from that last illustration and trying to apply it into new ones and pushing a bit further. As usual, we started by sketching in 2D and then translating it into 3D so we could see a bit how things develop. Sometimes the head might be tiny in 2D and it has to be a bit bigger in 3D. Sometimes a pattern might be really bold and strong in 2D, and in 3D it comes a lot more subtly and elegantly. We're just trying to translate the same world that exists in 2D and bring it into 3D and seeing what needs to change in that process. Now, as much as we love this project, we thought, okay, we need to finish it, we need to publish this and just get on to the next thing. And we really think that that's the best way that you can move on as an artist. I think we've all experienced that thing of starting to make an illustration or an animation, not really liking it, leaving it for a couple of weeks, coming, trying to fix it again, you don't really like it anymore and maybe you just leave it. Well, we really think that the best thing to do is to finish the piece that you're working on and to publish it and move on and know that the next one's going to be better. Even if you're not completely happy with it, you know that you're always improving that way. And we have a proof for this actually, because people always say it, but you always think, well, how can that be? How can that be? And here you can see our first ever 3D character. And we decided after a year of Cabeza Patata to recreate it how we would do. And here she is. And now seeing the two side by side, you can see how extremely different they are. They almost look like they belong to different worlds. So the character on the left, as well as having really different colours and different textures, of course missing the clothing, I find that one of the main differences actually is the lack of dynamism and the lack of a story really in the image. Whereas the image on the right, she has a much more exciting position. You have a little bit more of a stage there, so you're imagining a whole skate park or something. There's a drink that's fallen over, so you imagine she might have knocked it over doing a trick. She has a pattern on the shirt, which has got some palm trees, and you might think, oh, maybe she's in a hot country like Barcelona or LA, and you're creating a whole story within the image. All of these changes didn't come from sitting down and talking about them. They just came from creating, and every day, every time that we made something new, there would be a little addition. And when we thought, oh, actually, I like that color palette, and you push it a little bit more, or, oh, I like that style of clothing, and you push it a little bit more, and you don't stress yourself out. You just know that every time you make something new, it's always going to look better.
Our seventh point is that clients like what they've seen before. And we think it relates to the previous point. If a client had seen the first image with the skater, they couldn't tell that you were going to make the last one. So the best way to show clients where you're going or what you want to do is to make it yourself. So we do a lot of projects that we do for personal reasons that then end up going into the commercial world. This is a very good example. We work with the New York Times in this series about how to dress. Super cool article and amazing client. And we made 6 illustrations showing different people dressing in different occasions.
And you can see here a bit our process. First of all, we begin by making a sketch. After creating the sketch, we model the characters in position, and here we want to make them feel really comfortable and taking the space in the scene. Once we've confirmed that, then we jump into making the clothes for the characters, and then we put them onto the characters. And here you can see from each image coming from the initial sketch into the final 3D image, and seeing how some of the textures and some of the positions translate. And usually actually, if we're happy with the sketch and we have that all confirmed, things don't really change into 3D. Sometimes it feels almost like you press this button and it goes sketch straight into 3D, which is really satisfying. We enjoyed so much both making all of the fashion for these and also creating these stages with very minimal pieces. We wanted to create a sense of scene in each of these images. And so you might imagine, for example, that these characters are at the Oscars walking up the stairs into the gala. Then, funnily enough, recently El País, which is a Spanish newspaper, came to us again for an article about fashion. And somehow we sort of managed to convert ourselves into 3D character fashion illustrators, which I'm pretty sure doesn't exist anywhere, but if you ever need one, you know where to look. Now, like with everything in life, there are going to be exceptions, and this came with Google. They wanted us to make 24 animated stickers for their Google keyboard on the phone, and the issue was that they didn't want them to be with our human characters. And it was complicated then because we'd spent quite a long time refining the characters, and we thought, oh, we're in a really good place with these. And when Google came, we said, oh, perfect, we can definitely do this. And they said, oh, actually, but no humans. This is going to be a global project, and we want to make sure that we can represent everyone. And that would mean all skin tones, genders, ages, and it would just be too difficult. So instead, we decided to make Christmas objects.
And here you can see how it was looking. At the very left, you can see the first delivery we did to them. Now we find it a bit embarrassing, to be fair, because those trees look a bit sweaty or something. And the eyes look so small, and it's a bit weird. But with time and with iterations, obviously it's not a year of iterations, but with the many iterations, things started looking better and better, and suddenly we were in our comfort zone. Same thing happened with these bubbles. The one on the left looks like super, it's gonna die or something. And then on the right, we conveyed that feeling of on my way, that you can send up to a friend when you are coming. And we think it's an example that shows very well how working and repeating and trying again is how you get to the result. So don't get frustrated if the thing is not looking very good at the beginning.
And in the end, we did make 24 Christmas animated stickers, which actually you can almost use again soon. So we wanted to make different feelings that you might send to your friends and family throughout Christmas. So some of them might be feeling like a star going to the party. Some of them might be being with your loved ones, or some of them, I suppose a lot of people might be using this year about being away from loved ones over Christmas. We've realised during our whole time doing Cabeza Patata that people love seeing the process, and we love showing it as well. So we have some nice examples here of recent work that we made that was as fun to show the process as it was to show the final result. This is our first stop motion character that we made actually during the lockdown here in Barcelona. And we made her with a rigged skeleton inside so that she could be used to an animation. And outside we made her with needle felting and all of the clothes handmade. And here you can see some of the process of how we animated Greta. So it was frame by frame. So you move her a little bit and you take a photo, and you move her a bit more and take a photo, until you put them all together to make an animation. Now, it's not so cool watching that process video, but when you put it together with the final result, like here, it's quite exciting. And people really like to see this process. And we realized that it almost has as much value when you show the process as when you show the final piece. Everyone always says, oh, you must be so patient to be moving it frame by frame like this. And we say, well, actually in 3D, it can kind of even take longer. So at least this way we get to show people how it's made.
So as well, during the lockdown, we worked with the charity Casa Nostra, Casa Vostra, that defends the rights of immigrants in Catalonia and Spain. And we made this image for them. It was super fun to make this image, and we liked it so much that we applied what we always do, and we made an entire project. The project ended up talking about different feelings of like feeling at home, feeling peace, feeling protected, feeling the community. It was a really nice, beautiful project that I think was representing how we were feeling at the time. And also, we took it one step further and we were like, let's explore what we can do with it and let's make some augmented reality. So here you can see some tracking with it and how the project ended up looking, put onto the real world. This is something we want in the future to make a real figure like with this house, but for now we only have it in the digital world, which is fun.
Point 9 is learn how to play the game. And this is a bit about how taking what life throws at you and going for it. So last year we got our biggest project to date, which was for Spotify, and it was to create the mid-year campaign for the premium service. So the idea was to create 12 videos and 27 illustrations, and each one was going to have a different theme of how you feel when you listen to music. So this is a huge project, and we had to expand the team a lot for this. And while it was a really amazing experience and great results, you can see a few of them here in the process, it was also a really big deal for us to be able to take on such a big task and to really throw ourselves into it. We had a great time, and you can see here in this final edit how excitingly the piece turned out for us. Here's some of the animators in the team who it was just super fun to work with, and as well as being great animators and colleagues, they're also great friends.
So our 10th point is about where are we going, and we have like something we want to talk about, which is what happened in Pictoplasma last year. So Pictoplasma is a character design conference that, as well as inviting people to talk in the conference, they invite them to expose their work. So they wanted us to expose physical pieces. We did our exhibition in the Instituto Cervantes in Berlin, and we wanted to make as many physical pieces as we could. It was time to learn how to use a laser cut, so we made all these figures cut with laser, and also we cut some wood that we got a Dremel, and we started cutting all the wood and painting it. We made this figure. As well as that, we made a 3D printed character. It's something we wanted to do for a long time, 3D printed, and then making the clothes by hand.
As well as painting this huge wall, we also put out some pieces of paper which had stencils of Cabeza Patata heads. And we invited people who visited the exhibition to come and draw their own characters. And here are some of the amazing results. And it went huge. We didn't expect people to get so excited and into it, but every day when we came back to the exhibition, we were having to spread them around, move them up the wall to make space for all of the amazing characters people were making. And sometimes you'd come in and you'd just see groups of children drawing characters and they'd say, oh, can we make more than one? And we thought, okay, there's no rules here. So in the end, there was almost more work in the exhibition from other people's characters than from our own. We also have the giant Cabeza Patata head, which has got a bit infamous when it's been able to travel around with us. It actually came to Berlin with us as well and did a little bit of campaigning in the European elections. It's obviously is always at work with us, working hard, and sometimes on a lunch break. The head did actually have some hard times a little while ago, but everything bounced back with the appearance on its Nice That design magazine, which was a pretty big moment. And this funny thing happens when people put on the head. We can't be completely sure why, but everyone just has to start dancing. Now, I also still enjoy doing embroidery, sometimes as part of La Katie, doing often markets or workshops in embroidery. And in fact, we hosted one embroidery workshop in Berlin, which I think was probably the world record for an embroidery workshop. It's not verified, but there were hundreds of people there and it was so silent and so enjoyable, and we hope to do more. We're also members of an illustration collective called Puck in the UK, and we do a lot of fun events with them, sometimes exhibitions, meetups, or here we did a drink and draw, which is literally going and having a drink and doing some drawing together, which is super fun. Recommend it to everyone. Also, last year we had the opportunity to volunteer at Tumo Center in Armenia, and it's a center for design and technology, which is free for teenagers in Armenia. We went there to run a 2-week workshop with students aged between 15 and 17, and we had a great time and some great results. Here you can see in the video. So in the first 2 or 3 days of the workshop, we were working completely with pencil and paper, and we were doing exercises, learning about shape and colour, and a bit more theory of character design and concept. Once everyone had an idea about how they might create a character, they each sat down and designed a robot. Once we all had a robot in sketched form, they moved into 3D modelling. So we used Cinema 4D to model the robots initially. And then once they'd finished modelling and putting lots of details like little screws and little panels, we moved into Marvelous Designer, where we created clothing.
The final result was a fashion show in which each of the robots created by them was wearing different garments and they went on a catwalk. It's a funny concept that we created. A lot of different skills were required to complete this project. They included using your imagination to be able to think about a robot that has a functionality and has a meaning, and also using your 3D modeling skills, and also rendering, like understanding materials and understanding how we can express personality or character with the use of different materials, different shapes, and different colors. So some of you might be thinking, this doesn't really make sense, this doesn't really connect, so where are we going? So we have on one hand this like super complex 3D stuff, illustration, animation, and then all these physical pieces. So how can we connect them both? And at the beginning of the year we decided that the way to connect them both is to have a physical space where we could exhibit. So we built our studio just a couple days before the lockdown, which was a bit challenging. But we managed to do all the building works. The place was looking horrible at some point, but ended up looking fantastic. We're super happy with how it looks. And it's a place that is not only playing with all our dreams of like interior design and having everything look in the way we want, but it's also a space in which we can make things and exhibit them anytime we want. And the first thing we really wanted to make was a giant character. Here you can see how big the shoe is from our giant character. It's 3 meters. It's called Manuela and lives in the gallery now. It's something we wanted to do for a long time, but of course, until you have the space, you cannot really make it happen.
It's been a great moment for us to put together all of these things that we've loved making and doing under the umbrella of Cabeza Patata, and have the Espai Patata really as our space for everything that we love, whether it's creating textile designs, 3D printing, wooden pieces, photography, all character design here. And I really think that we've created a space that a little Katie and Abel would love to go and visit.